Welcome to the Crazy Cool Family Podcast with Don and Suzanne Manning. Parents, what if we could give you the power to transform your family into something absolutely amazing?
A family where everyone is healthy, gets along, loves Jesus, and has great purpose in life.
Hey, let us flip your thinking to unlock the power God has given you to create your own Crazy Cool family. Hello, Crazy Cool parents. Welcome to the Weekly Rethink. We have some special people in our house today. They've lived here for a while, some of them, but now they are back. Our two oldest daughters and their husbands and their infant children are with us.
Sons, actually.
Sons, yes. We have new grandsons. And, we always talk to you guys from our perspective as old people that have done a lot of our raising of family and are looking back and trying to help families along the way. But what does Crazy Cool family look like for a brand new family? Not a brand new marriage, but a brand new family.
Yeah, well, kind of brand new marriages too, right, guys? What I think is exciting with Mollie and Madeline's families is that they get to stand on our shoulders, on our ceilings. And so when we were just starting our families like they are, I wouldn't say we were a crazy cool family, would you? I mean,
not at all.
It took a lot of experiences and revelations from the Lord, a lot of trial and error for us to finally click. Oh, this is what it means to be relational. This is what
I would say that they know now what we knew at like year 12 or 15. I mean, They are so starting at a state of where we were, what took us a long time to get there.
And so Sebastian and Truett get to start where McKay left off. And so I call them kid number 8 and 9. So anyway.
So now that Mollie and Madeline are through the therapy of having to go through our first decade of parenting, they didn't really go to
mamas at the age of 3, 4, 5.
That's right. So today we want to talk about, let's make sure we introduce them.
And so we have Mollie and Damian with us, and they've been married for
4 years.
Yeah, and they have Sebastian Ray Torres, who is 3.5 months old-ish. And then we have Madeline and Larry, who have been married for
3 years.
3 years, so they still have baby marriages. And then they have Truett Edward Jones, who's 7 months old.
7 months old.
Every month it changes. That's why it's so hard to keep up with. So they're going to just share with us what life has been like these past 3 years in their marriage, and then these past just few months with adding new tiny little people to their families.
So one of the things we talk to parents about a lot is that a new baby brings lots of change in your family. So both of these couples have been 3 or 4 years into this, gotten established, everything's pretty easy, spending time with God, everything. So what about, the first thing we talk about in our book is pursue God. So now you've been in this 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 months. Mollie and Damian, you guys start. What's your relationship with God like now, post-infant?
So I think for me and from my experience with Mollie and Sebastian has been beyond the practical. I knew that and anticipated that would change, right? That we would have less time to spend not only with one another, but just pursuing relationships, period, right? But the one relationship that supersedes all, I also have seen that kind of impacted again, and that's just the practicality of the day, waking up maybe. Well, when you
waking up all hours of the day,
I was going to say waking up an hour early, but who knows? Waking up 2 hours early and then trying to squeeze in just the life things, I think has really forced us to be more intentional with our time and one another. But then also, my relationship with God is just being built, I think, through Sebastian, right? So every time that I have with Sebastian, I ask, what is God trying to teach me now, right? Is it patience? Is it consistency? What exactly is that, characteristic? And how am I growing that inside me? And then, with my relationship with God. And so I think that for me has been the change or, adaptation.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, people who have kids, and if you don't, you hear when you have a baby and kids in general, you just have less time to do the things that you did before. And so just for me, what it looked like to pursue God now versus before Bash was born is just maybe less consecutive minutes and hours with God. And before, where I would know, okay, I'd wake up at 5:30, 5:45, I would spend potentially X amount of time with God. I would be reading through a certain book or doing a certain study, and it was pretty planned out, which is my personality, so that's the way I like it. Now, especially with a baby, there is no day and night. You just live your life, which taught me more about God in and of itself than a lot of things have in my life. But you just can't get frustrated with not being able to do what you did before, even when it came to pursuing God. So now it looks like when I'm feeding him in the middle of the night, what am I choosing to do on my phone? Am I reading scripture or a study or being encouraged?
Or ordering on Amazon.
Also, there's time for both, you know? A feeding takes like 45 minutes, Amazon and Jesus. In the car, you know, Bash and I pretty much exclusively listen to worship music. If he's in a good mood and doesn't have to listen to music, we listen to sermons. And so just kind of figuring out how to put God into those situations. And then for me, I just got so much revelation in the middle of having him when I would just ask God, what is up? Like, why is this happening? Please give me a revelation. I'm not going to literally make it through the next 3 hours unless I have a truth from you. And
so
that
share the one, were you in the shower? And
it
was like 3 weeks in.
Well, I just have a problem with expectations in my life in general. I put them on a lot of people I know. And when he was probably 2 months old, I just had this expectation that he would be out of our room. He would be sleeping more than 2 hours. He would be eating farther apart. And he wasn't. And that's okay because he's the best baby ever. And I just had to get with God. And I just said, okay, like, what do you want? What's happening? How can I be a better mom in this situation? What are you trying to teach me? And God just basically said to release all expectation of him. Right now, it's about him and not about me. And that was hard. A good thing I was in the shower because, you know, the tears in the shower, they all mix together. But just moments like that where you're choosing to ask God then as opposed to just maybe at a long period of time where you get to spend with him. And he's bigger now and he has a schedule. And so we're getting to move back into that. But just choosing small moments to pursue Jesus and then also choosing to have your heart open to hear what he's saying because you might not have that much time to actually hear his voice.
Yeah, so it looks like you're learning things, but yet the schedule's definitely been disrupted. Let's flip it over to Madeline and Larry, and you can talk about your relationship with God too, but also let me add to it the marriage. So you guys have been married for 3 years, everything again just kind of rolling along, and all of a sudden things change a little bit. Not only in the birth of your child, but also even pregnancy too. So, you know, one of the things we sometimes forget about babies is that they were in your tummy for 9 months. So the changes that go through with marriage and with the pregnancy as well as the having the baby.
Yeah, I'll go first. Man, kind of like Mollie and Damian both shared, the dynamic is completely different when a little one walks into the room, or whatever he does.
If only he really did walk out and being born.
That would be helpful. Maybe in some ways, I'm sure it caused its own problems. But time with God just looks completely different. And I as well like a little bit more structure, kind of like Mollie, and it was just different. I would be up and not having time with God by myself, but with a baby crying or sleeping, you know, or I'm standing and bouncing him to keep him from crying, or, you know, it's just completely different. So there's a lot of praying while walking and worshiping while standing up and not reading my Bible as much, specifically when he was awake with me during my time with God. So it just looked different, but it was just because the dynamic changed and we had a baby, it didn't change if I was going to spend time with God or not. That's a non-negotiable for our family. And so we figured out, what does it take for us to both get time with God? Does that mean I take him early in the morning where you can get time with God? Does that mean you take him and I can get good time with God? And so we it's a battle because the dynamic's different, but we fought to get good time with him.
Yes, to all of the things about time with God. And then specifically how it affected our marriage. That also changed everything. I think that one thing that it did that was really sweet was it made us unified on this like one cause, which was just this little baby.
you were both at war together.
Yes, it's 2 versus 1. We would win. But he, like, specifically, I think one of the things that I have seen with Larry and Art in my marriage is Larry has this opportunity to serve me at a whole nother level, because he's not only serving me when he takes Truett or when he helps with Truett, he is serving me and Truett. And so I feel like double honored and double taken care of every time Larry comes home from work and he's had a long day and he woke up early to take care of Truett, and then he comes home and I need someone to hold him because he's been in my hands all day because he had a fussy day, and Larry says, how can I help? And it just makes it feel like, wow, this is awesome. You love me enough to come and save me from my infant baby, just even for a minute, so that I can go shower or pee or wash my hands or something, change out of this pukey shirt or whatever it is. And so it has felt really unifying on that front. There's also been like the harder front of it, which is we don't get to talk as much, or we don't get to have as much like alone time, or once 8 o'clock hits and Truett goes to bed, we're like, yes, let's do something. Let's play a game. Let's hang out. Let's eat dinner. And so there's been a different dynamic, specifically with communication and with our time together and with our focus. Our focus is on Truett more so than it is on each other, where it used to be like we were all about each other. And so those have been some things that have changed, but ultimately, I feel like it's unified us in a really sweet way.
So, Madeline, I remember, Truett was born in the beginning of December, and your birthday is the beginning of March. And Mollie, you and we were in town, just happened to be, I can't remember why we were in town, maybe to celebrate your birthday. And you and Larry went on a date. And I think that was y'all's first date without your baby in 3 months.
And we drove to Houston and back. And I think we came home, and I was like, I love my husband.
That's exactly what I wanted you to share.
Much. I love my husband. He's so fun, and he's funny, and he's fun to be around. But it had taken 2 months, almost 3 months, I guess, to like kind of realize that, because we were in the war zone, for lack of a better terms, like dealing with newborn world.
And Mollie and Damian, you guys kind of had that same aha moment too. I guess y'all are just at the 3 month mark, but I can't remember, you guys went somewhere for the day or something, and
I don't know. For me, Mom was close, so we got to have a lot more time. Like, I think when Bash was 3 weeks old, we just went down the street to Chipotle for dinner, but I cried the entire time, so it wasn't very normal. Normal probably for Damian, but
2 weeks, baby, not 3
weeks. Either way. But for me, having a kid, I feel now, knowing how much it affects marriage, I feel very passionate about this subject, because I'm slightly different than I think a lot of girls are growing up, in that I knew that God called me to be a mom, and when Damian and I were dating and talked about our future, we knew we wanted kids because it's sanctifying and it builds the kingdom. But my dreams when I was growing up weren't necessarily always included with being a mom. I wanted to be married. Like, that was my, oh my gosh, I can't wait for that to happen moment. And so that's like my peak. Like, I love Damian. He's my best friend. I would choose him over anything. I would probably still choose him over my baby right now. And there's not a lot of conversation around that, at least in the community that I was in. And so I felt a lot of, not shame, but just, if I chose to be a mom, how was I not choosing to be a wife? And I chose to be a wife. I felt bad for not choosing to be a mom, and how to balance it. And Damian was so incredible from the beginning. He just supported, and even Madeline said, like, he's so honoring in everything he did, but he's not emotional like me. And so when I would just cry and be like, I miss you, I want to sleep next to you, I want to cuddle you, but my body hurts and I have milk everywhere and I'm sad, he'd just be like, babe, it's just a stage, we'll get through this. And I just wanted to scream, like, no, you don't understand, this is gonna last forever. So if you're out there and that's been your experience, or maybe you know, like, wow, yeah, I want to be married and I'm excited to have kids, but marriage is my favorite thing, that's okay. Like, it's perfectly fine. And even God told me a lot of sweet revelation about marriage and the church, and how he's called the church his bride, in the middle of all of that. And that kind of like the two big, now, there's a lot of themes in the Bible, but God calls the church his bride, and then he sent his son to save the church. And so that's kind of what's been happening for me. I got to be a bride and be a wife, and then I got to have a son. And so through both of those revelations, God has just shown me a lot more of his character. So don't be discouraged if you're out there and you're walking through that, or you have wounds from that in the past.
Yeah, as I listen to you guys, a couple of themes come up. One of them is that parenting is just a blur. And so how do you deal with the blur of parenting? And both you guys have said the same thing, especially newborns. And then, and for parents that are in this stage, the newborns, if you have 3 or 4 kids, the blur is just going to keep coming, And so, I mean, because and I know that I don't want that to scare you as much.
That's encouraging.
We don't want it to scare you, but we do want to prepare you. Because what are you doing? Larry mentioned some things about how they fought for time with God. They fought to help each other. Both you girls have said about how your husbands are honoring it. It is a blur. It is a battle. And so what are you doing to fight the battle? And I think it's so easy just to give up. And so, my life's going to be a blur. I have no control over my time. It's always going to be like this. And those negative thoughts, and you guys can encourage each other, and your relationship with God encourages you. So that's awesome. And we've talked a little bit about your own relationship with God. We've talked a little bit about marriage and how that works, but let's talk about that infant. Some people tell us, especially with infants and young kids, there's no way to pursue little kids relationally. Your relational stuff doesn't work because they're going to throw a fit. I have to discipline them, whatever. So I'd love for you guys to comment and say, how do you raise an infant? We won't talk about 2, 3, 4-year-olds because we're not there yet with you guys, but how do you raise an infant relationally? And, when all you're doing feels like it's all you're doing is feeding and changing and sleeping, and Molly, you're so funny. There's milk everywhere. It's just
formula, milk.
Yeah. So why don't Madeline and Larry, why don't you guys start? And what do you do to pursue your infant relationally and start to build that energy in their lives?
Sure. I think one of the main things that I do with him is just try to get FaceTime with him. And I try to spend as much time with him as I can. And I'm always telling him that I love him. And I always tell him I'm proud of him. And I always tell him I'm not going anywhere and I'm never going to leave him. And that I'm his dad and I love him so much. And so I just spend a lot of time with him. I like playing with him, making him smile, making him giggle. And then I pray over him a lot, or I'll walk around with him and sing worship songs to him. It's like a new thing we've been doing when he takes a bath. He'll be kicking and slapping the water and having a blast, and I'll start singing, and it just calms him down, and he'll freeze almost in the water and just kind of lay there and listen to me sing to him, and then I'll stop, and he'll start playing again. And so I think just washing him with worship music and prayer while also spending a lot of time with him and like doing fun things with him.
I think something that I've done since he was tiny baby was the first words that come out of my mouth, specifically when I'm frustrated with him, is I'll say, "I love you, bud," and then I'll respond to whatever is happening. So if he was fussy and hysterical, I would say, "I love you, bud. It's okay, buddy. I love you so much. It's okay."
So Truett was a rough baby to start off with, right? Like
he just cried and cried and cried.
He cried. He had some little digestive issues and stuff like that, and so and Madeline,
and then he cried and cried.
So patient with him, and so when she said she was frustrated, then that's where she would approach it with. She would say, "I love you, bud," and then she would.
So what it helped do is like diffuse me from my like, he's been screaming. We've been driving for 4 hours and he's cried for 3.5 of them. Like that was an actual experience where he would cry for hours on end, and I would just start with, "I love you, bud. I love you so much. I'm sorry that you're frustrated. I'm sorry that you're in pain. I love you so much." And so that helps set a precedent in my heart to, when I felt like I wanted to get frustrated, if I spoke "I love you" first, it like diffused the frustration in my heart, and it was like, "I love you more than I care about my sleep or my sanity or my time or anything. I love you more." And so that was helpful to start relationally there.
Yeah, guys, and I think that what you just said is really impactful, is that not only do we speak words of life to our infant, and it makes a difference, like you were saying, Larry, but man, speaking those words of life actually made a difference in your life, and helped you to not have those negative thoughts there. Yeah. So yeah, Molly and Dames, what are you thinking over there?
Yeah, and so I think coming into that, my exposure to children under the age of probably like 10 was 0 from when I was a 10-year-old. And so I just had hesitations about, man, am I going to be able to connect with a baby, who can articulate themselves, who, obviously is experiencing life for the first time. And so, there were a lot of nervous thoughts that I had. I wasn't necessarily scared, but also wanted to make sure that I was intentional. And I think when I when I see maybe how our world engages, especially with dads, depending on who it is, to redefine what being a man looks like, I think it is hard to emotionally want to connect or overcome that pride of like, oh, that's okay. Like, I don't have to show, this emotion or that. And so for me, I try to be really intentional with that. And so, yeah, same as Larry, spending time with them, speaking just identity statements over him, right? And whether he acknowledges it or not, like he's a super happy baby. And so I share with him like, hey, when I smile, you smile. And he smiles back at me right now.
They both have dimples and I just cry every time.
And so for me, I think it's starting early and really laying that foundation of saying, hey, I want to be that role model for you. I want to share with you what it looks like to pursue the Lord. And hopefully, allow our family and him to really be that first child to lead the way for everyone else.
Yeah.
You gonna say something? Oh, I was just gonna say that the girls and their and the daddies, I guess the mamas and the daddies here have done an excellent job with their babies with eye contact. Like I know that they're my grandbabies and they can do no wrong, but I don't even know if I remember our children having such incredible eye contact. And eyes are considered the window to the soul. And so you guys have invested in the souls of your children in such an incredible way through those words and through that time and through that encouragement. And so I just encourage you parents out there to catch that eye contact and look into those babies' eyes.
I was just going to say to wrap it up that mom has even said this in a podcast because our grandma used to say this, that children are just little people. And so newborns and infants are the same thing. So Madeline and Larry and me and Damian have been talking to both Truett and Sebastian since they were brand new, like they were an adult. I mean, not adult situations, okay, we have to pay the bills, all that kind of stuff, but just like, hey, buddy, like I call Sebastian Nugget, like, hey, Nugget, there's no need to cry right now. You are perfectly content. Your diaper is changed. You're happy. You're fed. Yeah, and he stops crying. Or, oh my gosh, Nugget, I'm so excited you're awake. We're going to play and we're going to have so much fun. We're going to get in the car and we're going to go see Granny or Aunt Mads, just communicating and talking to them, not like they're unable to understand or comprehend, because as we've all said multiple times on this podcast, words are life. And so starting to use that and do that with them, even at this age, I think it makes a difference. And Larry even said in the bath, Truett will calm when you start singing worship over him. They understand it.
Yeah, and I just talking about culture, Madeline celebrates her baby in the most ridiculous ways. Madeline, just share a couple things you celebrate. Like, you drooled, yay, you drooled. What's something else?
Well, mainly he had a constipation issue for a while, so every time he pooped, it was like Christmas. And there was poop all up my arm one time, and I was like, I love you, thank you for pooping. But going back to the words thing, I just want to tell a funny story about Truett, like them not comprehending. One time we were getting in the car, and it was when Truett was screaming hysterically in that phase. Every time we got in the car, he just cried and cried and cried. And so we were driving back from work, and he was screaming in the car, and I said, buddy, I'll drive with the windows down if you stop crying. I said, I'll even drive with him down on Highway 6. He immediately stopped crying. So I was like, okay. And so we rolled down the windows and drove home, and he didn't cry the whole car ride. And I was like, what is happening? So just speaking to him like he was an adult, I was like, I'll even roll him down on Highway 6. Perfectly fine. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was a miracle. Maybe he understood. We'll see.
That's good. Yeah, so we are about to wrap up. We actually have babies crying right now. We just got some note on this, but just some last things about culture. I think it's so awesome that you guys are talking about how even from an infant, so many times I think for parents, they think that their children are just a bunch of tasks they have to do. We have to change the diaper. Yeah. We have to, and all of a sudden this burden's been put on our life that we have a child. Instead, we are going to celebrate a new individual in our home. Mollie and Madeline are very different. Mollie's much more structured. Madeline's much more free. But I mean, Madeline is a crazy encourager. Yeah. But for both of them, they are also very much listeners. And so just as their baby talks, just hey, he's talking and just giving them attention, just like we don't know what they're saying, but
we talk to them like you, Dad.
Yeah,
we're telling great stories.
That's right, but they are making noises, and so because they are little people. So I think that as we go through the 3 commitments we have you do at Crazy Cool Family, pursue God. As Larry was saying, your relationship with God doesn't get put on hold because you have an infant. In fact, God's going to teach you, as Damian's going to say, and there's more that you're going to learn through that infant. God brings you infants to teach you things. So when you're having those, with your children, just being open to where you are. And secondly, build relationships that you're always, now it's not that you have your marriage is going to go south. You're going to build relationships better. You're going to learn together and work together towards that. And then finally, create culture. How are you encouraging? Treat that child, as Mollie said, as a little person. And how are you going to relate to them? How are you going to encourage them? How are you going to listen to them? How are you going to? We're actually about to start disciplining, maybe, in our Lord 7th. Truett starting to scream when he doesn't get his food and things. So but no, maybe a little, yeah. So, but anyway, just the 3 things apply. Just because you have little kids, you're going to start your family with those 3 commitments, just like you will when they're middle school and teenagers and everything else. So, any final comments, anyone? Did I miss anything as I was wrapping up?
Well, I just want to thank Mom and Dad for having a Crazy Cool Family. 'Cause I feel like we, like they said, are standing on their shoulders. And there's so many times that I have friends that text me even to ask me, what would Suze do? Just text her. Yeah. But you guys did a really good job. Even though you might have started 12 years later, you said, if we're the result, I feel like the result of the guinea pig stage,
we didn't start very well, but we finished strong.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you are feeling discouraged, I'm so far into the game, or I haven't been doing culture, and my relationship with my kid is already strained, that's a lie. You need to rebuke it and move on. And if that takes, hanging out with Mom and Dad for a little bit to be filled up with life, to be encouraged by that, then do that, or find a community that will rally around you, because it's not too late. I don't think.
Yeah, and we had a really funny moment. Truett was screaming, wanting to eat, and I looked at Larry, and I was like, Larry, what do we do? He's acting up, what do we do? We need to read some books or something. And he goes, Madeline, it's about relationship. And I was like, yes, it's about relationship. And I was like, I need to call the experts. And so then I was like, mom. And so, but just his statement was so helpful. He was like, Madeline, it's about relationship, which triggered me. Okay, calm down. You're going to be able to figure it out. You and your husband are a relationship. Y'all are a team. Good. Y'all will be able to do it. Call your mom. She'll help you. Ask her what she did. It just made me be like, okay, it's not about how do I discipline him in this moment. It's about, how do I do this in this moment? It's about relationship. Even with my 7-month-old, it's about relationship. And it was really helpful to be like, we can do this. It's about relationship.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today, and thank you to Mollie and Damian and Larry and Madeline and Larry for being with us. We hope this has helped you, whether you have a newborn or whether you have younger kids or older kids. Doesn't matter. It's all about relationship. Madeline said it best, and so we'll wrap up with that. Thank you for being with us, and go be crazy parents. crazycoolfamily.com.